Hi guys, Nick here with BitGalaxis, bringing you a brand new video on our space combat prototype. And today I was going to cover a couple of different things that I've added to this prototype, and one of them being some post-processing to change the visuals a bit, and another being some lighting that we've added to our thrusters. So when we press and we're actually thrusting, you can see that the light gets more intense on the back of our engine. I still need to try and find a sound for it because I don't have any in it yet. But that's where I'm at right now. So let's kind of jump in and show how we can set up post-processing in our game. Now, whether you've done like the lightweight render pipeline or you've done like a standard, you just select 3D game when you're starting a new project in Unity. Post-processing works the same for both. And what you'll do is the first thing you need to do is create a post-processing profile. And so I went ahead and did that, and it's this little thing right here. And to create one, all you have to do is just right click, create, and go to post-processing profile right here. And we'll just call this test. Now, if I have the capitalization in there a little bit weird, but so we've got test here, right? And all you have to do is go to this and say add effect. We'll say Unity, and in this case what I've done is add bloom. Now, bloom's kind of like a cheap trick. It makes things look visually nice without really doing much of anything. But there are a couple of points I'd like to make about making it look nice and how you can make it work for your game. And I'll cover a couple of things I've done in just a minute. But with bloom, you want to set the intensity to about 2. And that's what I've set mine to, and the threshold to 1. And if you look and see what happens here, if we change this intensity, oh, by the way, we're not on the right one. This is what this post-processing has. I also added motion blur, but it really doesn't make much difference for my game yet, so because we're moving really slow. So I'm not really demonstrating that, but let's just look at bloom for now. And on the intensity, if you see, we can kind of raise this up. And like this is about 10, and you can see that it looks like it's getting washed out, like it's just really bright. Almost like you've got a migraine looking at this thing. But you know, that's a little over the top, so you can, you know, push this down a little bit or raise it up to about what you feel like is suits your needs. And that's how you get the settings set. So if I were to change, you know, test and post process are the same thing, but these aren't actually applying yet. There's a couple of extra steps we need to do. So the next thing that we have to do is go into post processing, and we need to set some empty game object and put that in, add a post-process volume to it. So first we create the post-processing profile, and then we create a volume, post-processing volume. So we'll get an empty game object, add component, and you can see I've already put post in the search. We'll use post-process volume. And then in that volume, all you need to do, by default it's already going to have these settings here. You just need to make sure you drag and drop your post-processing profile into that. So in this case, test and post-proc are the same. If we were to change test over here and increase the intensity of bloom to 45, we'll see how that works. We'll go into the post-processing volume, and we'll drop test into it, clicking around too much. And you can see our bloom applies, but obviously that's way too much, so we're going to put our original post-proc profile in there. So that's still not everything, though. We have one more step. We've got to go to main camera, and we've got to add a post-process layer. And then in that layer, it's going to have nothing set by default. And Unity tells you not to use everything. So you shouldn't. You really shouldn't. But if you want to make sure it works right off the bat without any other configuration, those 3 things will get to working if you select everything here. But just be aware that that's going to have some severe performance impacts. You can probably optimize that a whole lot better by selecting different layers. So, but if you want to make sure it works and you want to just get it up and running to get it there, then you would just select everything and then it applies. So you can see right now it's applying. So with those 3 steps in mind, you're good to go. Now, one of the things that you can do, how you make bloom work with certain things like light sources is, for example, on our waveform, we have this point light that I've used here. And that light has a certain intensity here. And if we make that more intense, it's going to get brighter. But that helps, you know, if you have something that has intense brightness, it's going to have more bloom. One thing to consider, for example, is like an emissive material. So let's say that we go to our prefabs and we have our laser, right? Let's open that prefab and we look at this, and the beam has this material, right, that has this emission color. So it has emission. And let me drag over this color. If you were to increase this, you'd get more bloom. Right now, I think it was actually at like 4 when I first started, and that's at 5. Without that emission, you're not going to get bloom off of those laser beams that we're shooting. So let's just kind of jump back into it real quick and show you what I mean. Like if we were to set this and we're shooting these laser beams, you can see how they have that bloom effect. They're kind of glowing, and just like the thruster has a light right there. So if you don't have emissive material, they're just going to look like these other ships that are flying around. And these ships also have a yellow thruster on the back, and they're just a point light on each of those as well. And you can kind of see there's a little bit of bloom on them even from a distance. So that's how, whether you have an emissive material or a light, you're going to get that bloom effect when you have both of them on there. And the amount of bloom that you're going to get depends on what you've set your bloom to, and also the intensity of either the material or the light. So keep those things in mind and you'll get something pretty interesting. So the last thing I wanted to cover was I have my little ship here, and it has this light, and what I've done is you can see here my waveform. I'm going to point out that it has this point light for the engine, and it is our 1, 2, 3, 4th item. So I'm going to go, and there's a reason why I point out it's the 4th item underneath the parent. When we're moving the ship, again, when we press the space bar, it lights up more, and then it starts to decrease a bit, and then it lights up more, and it just decreases a bit. So when we're pressing the space bar to thrust, we're going to get a brighter light. I need to have a sound effect so you get more of that feeling that it actually is pushing, but that light helps to, you know, show, oh yes, we're starting to thrust more now. And so the way that works is, actually I just have a couple of things here. I'm getting this light is actually an exhaust light. I'm getting a game object exhaust light. We're finding that, and then we're finding a light that's the what I call the XL. It's EXLT, which is for exhaust light. And what I'm doing there is I'm just finding the exhaust light, which is the game object's 3rd child. So I'm saying this game object transform get child, which is 3. So that's actually the 4th object because it starts at 0 and then game object. So the only way this works is if you have your ship's items in a specific order. So if I were to change the order around of where that light is, this is actually going to break because it's getting it by the child. So there are other ways of doing this. I just wanted to demonstrate that you can find something by the placement of a child in the parent object. Then when you have that, I want to get the light. I want to get the light component of that item. So I have that point light. We're getting that light component when we're setting it to EXLT. So then, finally, in our actual code that's changing this, we are saying the EXLT intensity, we're lerping that. And what lerping means is we're just kind of like interpolating the amount between a minimum and a maximum. And what we're really saying is we're going to take the current intensity. So if we're throttling, we want the intensity of that light to get to about 100, but we don't want to just make it 100 instantly. So we're going to say, what's our current intensity? We're going to move it towards 100. So we're going to increase it to 100 until it maxes out at 100. And then we're going to use time.delta time times intensity smooth. Oh, I forgot to say, intensity smooth is how fast we're making it get there, basically. So we're going to make it get to the maximum intensity with that smoothness there. So it's going to, you know, slowly get brighter and brighter and brighter. And then if we let go, it's going to do the same thing in the opposite direction, and it's going to go down. So we're going to take our current intensity, and we're going to move towards 15. So it's going to always be between 15 and 100. If we go up, and maybe this gets to 75 and we let go, it's going to start dropping down to 15. And again, time.delta time and the intensity smooth that we set up here is 2F. So anyway, that's it for today's video. If you guys like this, go ahead and hit like. if you have any other kind of videos you want to see, just let me know. I do know that there was one request to do turrets, and I will actually get to that at some point. What I'm trying to do with the game right now is to actually start wrapping things up because we've got all the effects in. I need more sound effects. I'll probably just start adding those, but it's going to be a few videos coming up where we'll actually get the health meter, just have a score, and keep it very simplistic, and then have a menu where we can restart and things like that. So once we have the whole game wrapped up, I'll start cleaning up the code, and then I'll probably package that up for people to download so they can start working on their own. Tweak the code any way they want, and then we'll start jumping into like more complex stuff. And I think the first thing after that will probably be like architecture, and because I'm already kind of throwing in scriptable objects here and there for some things, and I'm kind of going all over the place with it because I don't like to go linearly. I just kind of have ideas and like, well, let's just jump on this one here and there. But if you have something you want to see specifically, let me know, and I'll work on that. But just know I'll start working on all that after I've kind of wrapped up and made basically a complete game, a very simple game, but something that is complete and playable and packageable. So anyway, thank you guys for watching, and I hope to see you next time.